Krishna. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Well, it's the morning after the day before. Krishna, so much fun. So many realizations, so much mercy from Krishna. Jai Shri Prabhupada. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. It's very nice spending time with the devotees. Just a few, like family, just like family. Is family, actual family, real family. Prabhupada and Krishna's family is a real family. Whether there's a blood and material body connection or not, the spiritual connection. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna. A lot of fun. So I was discussing with one of the devotees about the Bhagavatam, and at first I thought the Bhagavatam that we have, that Bhaktivedanta Swami has given with his translations, commentaries, that there were two questions that were asked that allowed the Bhagavatam to be spoken. Just like Arjuna asks a question, which allows the Bhagavad Gita to be spoken. See, questions are... Hare Krishna. Questions are very important. For Krishna consciousness, questions are necessary. Questions like, where is Krishna? Why am I suffering? What's my duty? Is there God? All these questions. Where can I find a spiritual master? How do I associate with devotees? What happens at death? These are important questions. Hare Krishna, and they allow Krishna consciousness when those questions come. So originally, in the Goswamis, like, where's Krishna? But I was thinking within the last few days that there were two questions that allowed the Bhagavatam to be spoken. But now I see there's three. And wherever questions like this arise, there's an opportunity for Bhagavatam. So when we hear that on the higher planets there are many more cantos of Bhagavatam, they're asking more questions. So the Bhagavatam is manifesting in more cantos. But we have 12 cantos, 10 originally translated with commentary by Prabhupada. And then the remaining 2 have been given by one of his disciples, the translations and commentaries. So basically we have 12 cantos. So what were the questions that were asked? The first question that was asked by Narada Muni. And his question was, why am I despondent? why aren't I feeling bliss and ecstasy? Why am I not joyful? He had taken on the task of compiling the Vedas, which give guidance in a very regulated way of how persons who are in the different modes of material nature, goodness, passion, and ignorance, can act in a progressive way to become less influenced by the material nature, to avoid reactions, for the benefit of society. Society would run smoothly, and people's lives would be not so disturbed, and they could be elevated at the time of death. So it was a monumental task, and he compiled the Vedas. But he wasn't ecstatic, he wasn't blissful, he wasn't happy. So he asked the question, why? I've done this. It's a very valuable service. Why am I despondent? Why am I not happy? So his spiritual master, Narada Muni, explained to him, because you have not actually glorified the personality of God, the personality of Godhead, his blissful nature. If you glorify his blissful nature, then you'll become blissful. So that was the first question. Why am I despondent? Even though I'm doing such wonderful work, very important work for all of society, why am I not completely ecstatic? Why? So that was the first question. And then the Bhagavatam became manifest. His nephew, Ganesh, because he and Lord Shiva are actually brothers, and Ganesh is one of Lord Shiva's sons, took the dictation. Hare Kṛṣṇa, Hare Kṛṣṇa. And Srila Vyasadeva spoke the Bhagavatam. So that was the first question. Why aren't I blissful? And then boom, there's Bhagavatam. And it's described that by reading the Bhagavatam from the first canto all the way up to the 10th, is like, first cantos are like the lotus feet of the Lord, and then as you rise up through the cantos, through the legs and the midsection and the chest, and then finally the smiling face, which is the 10th canto, the arms, and then the smiling face, the 10th canto, which is what we're going to read a little bit from, a summary study of that 10th canto for minutes. Kṛṣṇa. So that was the first question. And now we have Bhagavatam. But there were two more questions. Why we now, in this time and place, actually have Bhagavatam. The second question was asked by Maharaj Parikshit at the turn of the yugas, when the ages were degrading and the Kali Yuga was just beginning, after the battle of Kurukshetra, when Maharaj Parikshit was the last of the qualified leaders, kings on the planet, God-conscious kings, righteous kings. And his question was, he had been, fittingly enough, since it was the degradation of the yugas, he had been cursed by the Brahminical class. He was a child in the Brahminical class, a young boy who didn't know any better. But it was an indication of the crumbling of the society. After all, Kurukshetra had been fought, all the Kshatriyas were gone, and now the Brahmins there were more cracks in the wall, unqualified. They had powerful mantras, but they weren't qualified. So one of these Brahmin boys, unqualified but with a very powerful mantra, had cursed Parikshit Maharaj to die for a very insignificant action. He'd done something quite insignificant. But actually there's nothing insignificant. It was actually very significant. The boy's father was meditating in the forest. They lived in the forest, and his father was meditating, and he was in deep trance. Maharaj Parikshit had been wandering in the forest, doing his Kshatriya thing, hunting, and that's Kshatriya thing, to sharpen his skills as a leader of the armies. And he was very thirsty, and he came to the hut, and he wanted a little water. But the Brahmin sage was in meditation, and he didn't acknowledge the presence of Parikshit Maharaj. He became a little angry. Kshatriya is in the mode of passion, become a little angry. And he took a dead snake and wrapped it around the Brahmin's neck like a garment. So that was not very nice. It shouldn't really have been done, but it wasn't something you would curse someone to die for. But the Brahmin boy became very, very angry to see his father treated like that. And he cursed Maharaj Parikshit to die. So we see a clash of the castes there that could not be resolved civilly as the social structure was crumbling. The Kshatriya at odds with the Brahmins, and the Brahmins overreacting. Does the punishment fit the crime? No. But it couldn't be resolved because of the age of Kali coming, and that's what happened. So Maharaj Parikshit, he could have countered the curse. He was very powerful in his own right, but he understood what was happening. And he said, let the curse come. So let me just meditate here on, and his question, which brought the Bhagavatam to be spoken again, was, what is the duty of a person who is about to die? What is the most important thing, most significant thing they can do when they know they're about to die? And that's when Sukadeva Goswami wandered into that assembly on the bank of the Ganges, having heard the Bhagavatam from his father before he was born. He was in the womb of his mother, and Vyasadeva was reciting this Bhagavatam in ecstasy, and his son within the womb of his mother heard the Bhagavatam before he was even born. So he was in ecstasy also, Sukadeva, and he wandered into that assembly and was recognized as the most qualified person to explain and to speak on what is the duty of a person who is about to die. So he took the Vyasasana and spoke the Bhagavatam to Maharaj Parikshit to answer his question. What is the duty of a person who is about to die? So we're all about to die, we just don't know when. Maharaj Parikshit knew when he was going to die. We don't know. It could be, I might not finish this presentation. We don't know. But he knew. We know we're going to die. We don't always acknowledge that in our activities. We don't. We kind of ignore it. Like Yudhishthira, when he was asked what is the most amazing thing by his father, he answered, the most amazing thing is that everyone sees others around them dying, but they don't think it will happen to them. That's amazing. So we're all in the same position as Parikshit Maharaj. Haribol. Go Haribol. Haribol. Really that I'm on a roll. Hare Kṛṣṇa. So that's the most amazing thing. Hare Kṛṣṇa, Hare Kṛṣṇa, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So that was the second question that brought the Bhagavatam to be spoken. The first question was by Vyasadeva himself. Why am I despondent? I've just done this wonderful service for society. I've charted out the path of activities so that people in all the different modes of material nature can be elevated and avoid karmic reactions, liberation, basically. Why aren't I happy? Something's missing. So that was the first question. And Narada answered it, because you've not directly glorified the personality of Godhead. So then the Bhagavatam was spoken. In ecstasy, glorifying the personality of Godhead. The second question is now Maharaj Parikshit, who's asking, what's the duty of someone who's about to die? Which is all of us. What's the duty? And that was answered by Sukadeva Goswami, who heard the Bhagavatam from his father while he was still in the womb. So that was the second question, and that was the second time the Bhagavatam, as we're following in our succession, was spoken. So then the third question that allowed the Bhagavatam to be spoken was by the sages at Naimisharanya. And this is after Maharaj Parikshit heard the Bhagavatam. This is after Kurukshetra. And this is when the age of Kali is really becoming obvious that it's descending. It's coming. The dark cloud of Kali Yuga is coming. They're seeing the signs of it everywhere. And there's no good rulers. Society, the structure, varnashram structure is crumbling. No one's qualified to do anything. Kalo Sudra Sambhava, everyone's Sudra. What is the duty? What can bring light to this age? How will people get relief from this horror? How will they get relief? Where have religious principles gone? Where's the path? So this was a question of the sages of Naimisharanya. Where's the path? Where's the light? Where's the knowledge? Where is it? Where is it gone? And that's where Suta Goswami, who was present at the assembly of Maharaj Parikshit, heard the Bhagavatam. So this is the disciplic succession, Shravanam Kirtanam, hearing, by hearing. So, that was the third question. How will people in general in society get relief from the age of Kali? So those are three basic questions where we have three very significant situations where the Bhagavatam is spoken. And what we have now, right now, if we look around us in the present situation, is A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, Srila Prabhupada, has fulfilled the mission of this whole succession by distributing Bhagavatam to people in general all over the world in book form. Hare Kṛṣṇa, Hare answers those three questions. Why am I not happy? What's my duty? I'm not this body, I'm going to die, what's my duty? And what will benefit society and people in general? Where will they get light? How will society be benefited? People in general. So that's what we have in this Hare Krishna movement. And that's the Bhagavatam. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. And the way we approach Bhagavatam is through the mercy of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Because we're not like great scholars. Most of us. We have some great scholars. We do. But most of us were not very, I think I know maybe 3 or 4 verses. And it asked me to find them. I'll have to go on Google and do a Google search. Where does it appear? But that's not an impediment because of the mercy of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He's put all his potencies in the holy name, this Mahamantra. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. That unlocks the mysteries of the Bhagavatam and the spiritual path. Mercy of Chaitanya. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna. So whereas there's the Bhagavatam and the holy name and the person. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama. The authorized speaker of Bhagavatam. The Bhagavatam, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna. Wow. Hare Rama, Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Rama, Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna. Hare Rama, Rama, Hare Krishna. Many people have families and children. I don't. So they experience regularly the power of children. Children are very, very powerful, influential forces to be reckoned with. It's like energy unleashed. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. I had the great pleasure of devotees visiting yesterday, and there was a 5-year-old. And like, oh my God. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Talk about questions. Why is this? What's that? What's under here? And even the question, where's Krishna? Demanding, where's Krishna? So someone had to sit down with him, his grandmother had to sit down with him and open the Krishna book and say, okay, here's Krishna. And look at the pictures and talk about Krishna. Here's Krishna. So I was thinking about Krishna's childhood pastimes. How could you not, having a 5-year-old running around here? In that he was only 6. Okay, he's not 5, he's 6. When he convinced his father and all the residents of Vrindavan that they should just forget about Indra. Who cares? He preached philosophy. Don't give so much homage to Indra. Just worship Govardhan Hill. That's all we need to do. We get everything we need from Govardhan Hill. What's with this Indra? Some demigod. We don't need that. We have Govardhan Hill. So take everything that you prepared for Indra and just offer it to Govardhan Hill, and we'll have a big festival. We'll worship Govardhan Hill. We'll take the remnants of the sacrifice, and we'll be blissful. And he's only 6 years old. But seeing the power of this child yesterday at 5, yeah, Kṛṣṇa, I mean, they take over, there's no stopping them. It's like they demand attention. Hare Kṛṣṇa, if they're an outgoing child, some of them are very, but this one was very outgoing. Hare Kṛṣṇa, very confident, very much in touch with what he was experiencing and what he was feeling, and he wanted answers. Kṛṣṇa. Yeah. And then, of course, when Indra was not happy about the situation, not recognizing this little 5-year-old, 6-year-old, as actually being the personality of Godhead in that instance, became angry, sent down torrents of rain. And Kṛṣṇa just lifted the whole Govardhan hill with one hand, a little finger of one hand, and held it like an umbrella for like 7 days. And everyone continued partying. Till Indra realized, oh, yeah, that's Kṛṣṇa having a pastime. Uh-oh, I'm in trouble. Hare Kṛṣṇa, Hare Kṛṣṇa, Kṛṣṇa, Kṛṣṇa. Took his rain and his thunder and lightning, packed it all up, and took shelter. Hare Kṛṣṇa, Hare Kṛṣṇa, Kṛṣṇa Kṛṣṇa, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Kṛṣṇa, Hare Kṛṣṇa, Kṛṣṇa Kṛṣṇa, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Uh-oh, didn't bring my glasses. I'm going to need them. Reading glasses. Hare Kṛṣṇa. Read a little bit from the 10th canto of the Bhagavatam. Hare Kṛṣṇa, Hare Kṛṣṇa, Kṛṣṇa, Kṛṣṇa Chaitanya. I can get up. Too much partying yesterday. Kṛṣṇa Chaitanya. Oh, there we go. Hare Kṛṣṇa, Hare Kṛṣṇa, Kṛṣṇa Kṛṣṇa, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Kṛṣṇa, Hare Kṛṣṇa. Kṛṣṇa, Kṛṣṇa, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Kṛṣṇa, Hare Kṛṣṇa. Kṛṣṇa Chaitanya. So, here we go. It's the 10th canto, Srimad Bhagavatam. Actually, this was spoken again. Because Srila Prabhupada, he actually spoke the Bhagavatam. When did he do that? At night, when everyone was sleeping. He used a dictaphone, and he spoke the Bhagavatam once again. And this is the 10th canto, summary study of the 10th canto. This is Prabhupada speaking at night while everyone's sleeping. Hare Kṛṣṇa, Hare Kṛṣṇa, Kṛṣṇa Kṛṣṇa, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Everyone's starting to wake up now. Hare Kṛṣṇa, Hare Kṛṣṇa. So, Kṛṣṇa, Kṛṣṇa. Ten o'clock. Kṛṣṇa is in Mathura, and he sent a message with his cousin, Uddhava, to his family and friends in Vrindavan, where he was raised. And everyone's missing him, and he's also thinking of them, because they all had such a good time in that Vrindavan mood. But now he's taken up the duties of the royal family. So he sent Uddhava. And Uddhava is helping everyone to understand a little bit better the personality of Godhead and his potencies, his powers. The residents of Vrindavan are not scholars. They're simple village people who simply loved Kṛṣṇa. But they didn't really get too much of a sense of that he was actually the personality of Godhead. They never even thought of him like that. So now that he's left, they're feeling like complete despair, not understanding how Kṛṣṇa moves in this world and in the spiritual world. So Uddhava is enlightening everyone, explaining a little bit about Kṛṣṇa, and they're getting some relief. Their attachment is still there. That's never going to go away. But they're getting a little bit of relief, understanding that he is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He's the shelter of all living entities in everyone's heart. And he also can appear in pastimes as a small child, which was what he did with them. So they're getting a little relief. And now they're discussing. Uddhava is sitting in a secluded place with the Gopīs, who were young girls who played with Kṛṣṇa. They played intimate play with Kṛṣṇa as a child in an amorous mood, like loving relationships. So they're feeling very much separation. And so Uddhava's message, here we are, delivery of message of Kṛṣṇa to the Gopīs. Uddhava's messages and instructions saved the Gopīs from immediate death. And the Gopīs acknowledged the benediction from Uddhava. Uddhava practically acted as the preceptor spiritual master of the Gopīs, and they in turn worshipped him as they would worship Kṛṣṇa. It is recommended in authoritative scriptures that the spiritual master should be worshipped on the level of the Supreme Personality of Godhead because of his being his very confidential servitor. And it is accepted by great authorities that the spiritual master is the external manifestation of Kṛṣṇa. The Gopīs were relieved from their transcendental burning condition by realizing that Kṛṣṇa was with them. Internally, they remembered his association within their hearts, and externally Uddhava helped them to appreciate Kṛṣṇa by conclusive instructions. This is this worship of the Gopīs is praised and is recommended and is considered the highest form of worship. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is described in the scriptures as adhokshaja, which indicates that he is beyond the perception of all material senses. Although he is beyond the perception of material senses, he is present in everyone's heart. At the same time, he is present everywhere by his all-pervasive feature of Brahman. All three transcendental features of the Absolute Truth, Bhagavan, the personality of Godhead, Paramatma, the localized Supersoul, and the all-pervasive Brahman, can be realized simply by studying the condition of the Gopīs in their meeting with Uddhava as described by Srimad Bhagavatam. Hare Kṛṣṇa. It is said by Srinivasacharya that the 6 Goswamis were always merged in thoughts of the activities of the Gopīs. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has also recommended the Gopīs' method of worship of the Supreme Personality of Godhead as super excellent. Srila Sukadeva Goswami has also recommended that anyone who hears from the right source about the dealings of the Gopīs with Kṛṣṇa and who follows the instructions will be elevated to the topmost position of devotional service and will be able to give up the lust of material enjoyment. Hare Krishna. All the gopis were solaced by the instruction of Uddhava, and they requested him to stay in Vrindavan for a few days more. Uddhava agreed to their proposal and stayed with them not only for a few days, but for a few months. He always kept them engaged in thinking of the transcendental message of Kṛṣṇa and his pastimes. And the gopis were feeling as if they were experiencing direct association with Kṛṣṇa. While Uddhava remained in Vrindavan, the inhabitants enjoyed his association. As they discussed the activities of Kṛṣṇa, the days passed just like moments. Vrindavan's natural atmosphere, with the presence of the river Yamuna, its nice orchard of trees decorated with various fruits, Govardhan Hill, caves, blooming flowers, all combined to inspire Uddhava to narrate Kṛṣṇa's pastimes. The inhabitants enjoyed Uddhava's association in the same way as they enjoyed the association of Kṛṣṇa. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So Uddhava is acting as the spiritual master of the gopis. And Prabhupada is explaining that the spiritual master be worshipped as Kṛṣṇa. He's not Kṛṣṇa. Kṛṣṇa is Kṛṣṇa. But being Kṛṣṇa's representative, he is as good as Kṛṣṇa. Hare Krishna, an expansion of Kṛṣṇa, the Guru. So the gopis were showing this, and they were absorbed in Kṛṣṇa by hearing about Kṛṣṇa from the spiritual master. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Kṛṣṇa. Yeah. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Amazing. Because now we're seeing this reciting of Kṛṣṇa's pastimes is going on everywhere. It's even going on in Vrindavan. So this message of Bhagavatam pretty wonderful. Uddhava was attracted by the attitude of the gopis because they were completely attached to Kṛṣṇa. And Uddhava was inspired by the gopis' anxiety for Kṛṣṇa. He began to offer them his respectful obeisances and composed songs in praise of their transcendental qualities as follows. So this is a song. Among all the living entities who have accepted the human form of life, the gopis are super excellently successful in their mission. Their thought is thoroughly absorbed in the lotus feet of Kṛṣṇa. Great sages and saintly persons are also trying to be absorbed in meditation upon the lotus feet of Kṛṣṇa, who is Mukunda himself, the giver of liberation. But the gopis, having lovingly accepted the Lord, are automatically accustomed to this habit. They do not depend on any yogic practice. The conclusion is that one who has attained the gopis' condition of life does not have to take birth as Lord Brahma, or be born in a Brahmana family, or be initiated as a Brahmin. Sri Uddhava confirmed the statement of Bhagavad Gita spoken by Lord Kṛṣṇa. One who takes shelter of him for the right purpose, be he a Sudra or lower, will attain the highest goal of life. This is perfect for us in this age So we get the highest thing because forget being born in a Brahmin family, forget taking birth as Lord Brahma. So we get the highest thing by the mercy of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. One who takes shelter of him for the right purpose, be he a Sudra or lower, will attain the highest goal of life. The Gopis have set the standard of devotion for the whole world. By following in the footsteps of the Gopis, by what? By constantly thinking of Kṛṣṇa. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. By constantly thinking of Kṛṣṇa, one can attain the highest perfectional stage of spiritual life. The Gopis were not born of any highly cultured family. They were born of cowherd men, yet they developed the highest love for Kṛṣṇa. For self-realization or God-realization, there is no need to take birth in a high family. The only thing needed is ecstatic development of love of God. In achieving perfection in Krishna consciousness, no other qualification is required than to be constantly engaged in the loving service of Kṛṣṇa. Kṛṣṇa is the supreme nectar, the reservoir of all pleasure. The effect of taking up Krishna consciousness is just like that of drinking nectar. With or without one's knowledge, it will act. The active principle of Krishna consciousness will manifest itself everywhere. It does not matter how and where one has taken his birth. Krishna will bestow his benediction upon anyone who takes to Krishna consciousness. Without any doubt, the supreme benediction attained by the Gopis, in spite of their being born in the family of cowherd men, was never attained even by the goddess of fortune herself, and certainly not by the denizens of heaven, though their bodily forms were like lotuses. The Gopis are so fortunate that during Rasa Leela, Kṛṣṇa personally embraced them with his arms. Kṛṣṇa kissed them face to face. Certainly, it is not possible for any woman in the three worlds to achieve this except the Gopis. Uddhava appreciated the exalted position of the Gopis and wished to fall down and take the dust of their feet on his head. Yet he did not dare to ask the Gopis to offer the dust from their feet. Perhaps they would not be agreeable. Therefore, he desired to have his head smeared with the dust of the Gopis' feet without their knowledge. He desired to become only an insignificant clump of grass or herbs in the land of Vrindavan. The Gopis were so much attracted to Kṛṣṇa that when they heard the vibration of his flute, they instantly left their families, children, honor, feminine bashfulness, and ran towards the place where Kṛṣṇa was standing. They did not consider whether they were passing over the road or through the jungles. Imperceptibly, the dust of their feet was bestowed on small grasses and herbs in Vrindavan, not daring to place the dust of the Gopis' feet on his own head. Uddhava aspired to have a future birth in the position of a clump of grass and herbs. He would then be able to have the dust of the Gopis' feet. Lord Brahma also prays like that. Let me be. He wanted the dust of Krishna's feet, Lord Brahma, but here Uddhava is wanting the dust of the Gopis' feet. And Lord Brahma also, I think, he wanted to be a clump of grass because he just wanted the dust. I think he wanted everyone's dust. I don't know, it's been a while since I read that. But Lord Brahma wanted to take a birth as a clump of grass also, to get dust. Uddhava appreciated the extraordinary fortune of the Gopis, who relieved themselves of all kinds of material contamination by placing on their high, beautiful breasts the lotus feet of Kṛṣṇa, were not only worshipped by the goddess of fortune, but by such exalted demigods as Brahma and Lord Shiva, which are meditated upon by great yogis within their hearts. So they're not meditating on the breasts of the gopis, they're meditating on the feet of Kṛṣṇa. And the gopis are taking those feet that everyone worships and placing them on their breasts. They're young girls. Hare Krishna. After living in Vrindavan for some days, Uddhava desired to go back to Kṛṣṇa, and he begged permission to leave from Nanda Maharaj and Yasoda. He had a farewell meeting with the gopis, and taking permission of them also, he mounted his chariot to start for Mathura. When Uddhava was about to leave, all the inhabitants of Vrindavan, headed by Maharaj Nanda and Yasoda, came to bid him goodbye and presented him with various kinds of valuable goods secured in Vrindavan. They expressed their feelings with tears in their eyes. You want to express feelings, tears in the eyes, due to intense attachment for Kṛṣṇa. All of them desired benediction from Uddhava. They desired always to remember the glorious activities of Kṛṣṇa and wanted their minds to be always fixed upon his lotus feet, their words always engaged in glorifying Kṛṣṇa, and their bodies always engaged in bowing down and constantly remembering him. This prayer of the inhabitants of Vrindavan is the super excellent type of self-realization. This method is very simple: to fix the mind always on the lotus feet of Kṛṣṇa, to talk always of Kṛṣṇa, without passing on to any other subject matter, and to engage the body in Kṛṣṇa's service constantly. Specifically, in this human form of life, one should engage his life, his resources, words, and intelligence for the service of the Lord. Such kinds of activities only can elevate a human being to the highest level of perfection. This is the verdict of all authorities. The inhabitants of Vrindavan said, "By the will of the Supreme Authority, and according to the results of our own work, we may take our birth anywhere. It doesn't matter where we are born, but our only prayer is that we may simply be engaged in Kṛṣṇa consciousness." A pure devotee of Lord Kṛṣṇa never desires to be promoted to the heavenly planets, or even to Vaikuntha or Goloka Vrindavan, because he has no desire for his own personal satisfaction. A pure devotee regards both heaven and hell to be on an equal level. Without Kṛṣṇa, heaven is hell, and with Kṛṣṇa, hell is heaven. When Uddhava had sufficiently honored the worship of the pure devotees of Vrindavan, he returned to Mathura and to his master, Kṛṣṇa. After offering respects by bowing down before Lord Kṛṣṇa and Balaram, he began to describe the wonderful devotional life of the inhabitants of Vrindavan. He presented all the gifts given by the inhabitants of Vrindavan to Vasudeva, the father of Kṛṣṇa, and Ugrasena, the grandfather of Kṛṣṇa. So that's Uddhava visits Vrindavan and delivers the message of Kṛṣṇa to the gopis. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purport of the 46th chapter of Kṛṣṇa, delivery of the message of Kṛṣṇa to the gopis. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jai Shri Prabhupada. Hare Krishna.